further ado, we have Mr. Byers, who has a number of books, and take it away, Bruce.
All right, here we go. We can get this thing going here. All right, thank you, Frank, for bringing me on here once again. It's great to know you for so many years, and projections has been one of those things, especially when we're able to be in a bar or whatever and have that video room where we all sat around and we could actually talk to each other and clap and do all that was really great. So we'll get back to that. I have been a photographer for many years, and it's one of my favorite photographs I took when I was 14, because my mother actually allowed me to take her Rolleiflex, which was I can't do that, but I did. Moments in time, if I knew Cartier-Bresson back in the early 70s, I'd probably be in Paris right now, because I have been literally chasing the decisive moment for many years. And so
I'll take care of it.
Thank you for inviting me, Frank. And I want to definitely thank the companies that have supported you for so long, and other photographers. And I've know all these from years of actually buying their equipment or working with them, reading the magazine. And it's just a magnificent way to support artists to be able to showcase their work. And my work has taken me around the world, and certain places I have my armed guards, and he happens to be standing in front of a ad for a grocery store. So it's a great background. So my mother shot with a Brownie camera as a kid back in the 30s, and she always carried a Rolleiflex since the 50s. My father shot with a Minox and carried a 16mm film camera, and I'm glad they did, because they were actually my first inspiration. They gave me my first camera when I was 8 years old. It's been endless rolls of film, hundreds and hundreds of airplane flights, and I am in desperate need of a bigger hard drive. So when I travel, I try to make sure that I have my my car rental right, or wherever, but sometimes it gets off a little bit, and I end up, in this case, I ended up walking. But just one of the best things of photography is I couldn't be a stand-up comedian, so I love to be able to photograph stuff that just makes me laugh every time I see it. It's just amazing. And also that whole idea of, the best photograph is behind you, or hurry up and wait, and it'll happen again, as in this bus would come by. This is in Bangladesh, and I had just come out of a OR, and the bus came by, and I think someone needs to be muted there. And so I figured that if I just wait a moment, another bus will come by, and sure enough, it did. So this is kind of the way I traveled, and Frank was just talking about, is this our job? Well, I was on a job in Bangladesh to follow a bunch of doctors, and if it hadn't been for the desire to get outside that hospital and go walk down the streets, I never would have run into this shot. So while I work, I always have my own creativity with me all the time. because that's the only way it inspires me, and it just keeps me going. So I consider myself a documentary environmental portrait storyteller. And, you know, it's my job to make sure that my photographs tell the story of what I've seen. This photograph is another one of my favorites in the West Bank, and I just look at it. The woman with a full burqa and her Down syndrome child, and just to think of the two of them looking at each other, wondering what in the world is going on. You know, the kid can't see his mother, but the mother is sitting there trying to figure out, you know, how to deal with her child in a country that is so third world that there's no real internet to explain what's going on. Again, moments, seeing into, waiting for it, just being there has been my life. I always love how you know, I grew up with the subways of New York being painted, and I was photographing this train, and the train starts moving away, and I was still photographing, and she just leans forward to kiss the guy, and the train literally 1 second later was gone out of my frame. And it's, you know, just keeping my eyes open. I always believe in seeing with my eyes and capturing with my camera. So hopefully my Xerox machine that I put up to my eye is there in time. And in this case, I feel that it was. Again, sitting on the back of a moped in Cambodia, driving along, bouncing along the road. I kept tapping the guy on the shoulder. I said, "You're supposed to take me to the rice fields. Where are the rice fields?" He says, "Wait. We come around the corner and you think that Spielberg was shooting a movie." It was like, you know, ancient wagons and in the middle of nowhere, no tractors, no nothing. But these guys were cutting wheat as if they had machinery. It was just absolutely amazing. And one of the places I love is Cuba, and just being able to create down there is just endless. In about 5 years ago, I went off to Pakistan with a friend of mine, and again, the moments in time over there, I thought everything was going to be different. I thought I'd have to watch out for myself. The people were absolutely amazing and wonderful and very open. I had a hard time getting them out of my photograph. And so it just opened up another world. But again, as a photographer of many years doing travel, you have to be very street smart. We got into a place where they were making bricks, and I'm photographing, and all of a sudden I see my friend walk over to the guy who had given us permission, and then they start pointing at me, and I realized that it was time to leave. And I finished photographing what I was photographing, and I walked by my friend and said, "Hey, let's go," and we took off. So street march is very, very important for myself. But then, of course, we had to stop, even though we kicked out of not kicked out, but got out of one place. Then 10 miles down the road, we get into another. I always got a hard time for photographing the women of Pakistan, but I felt that in this situation, it was just an image, a shape within another color, and I didn't get too much trouble for it, but I just had to photograph it. Been to Bangladesh an awful lot with medical missions, and again going out into the town and cities that are nearby. This was like Grand Central terminal for Bangladesh, and literally they were just going across the river and back. incredible chaos, but incredibly well organized. Wanting to do things, wanted to get on the ships across. You had to get on one of these little taxis, and it just a matter of just standing there and hoping that something happens to allow you to do what you wanted to do. Camels at the end of the day. So if people know me and know my work, street moments is one of my biggest passions, and the passion since the late 60s. And I shoot with an M6, a Leica M6, and still shoot films, still have my darkroom. And so it's been my passion for many years. The just being able to capture those images, and I actually shoot with a 35 millimeter lens, because I've found that that's the way I see, and so therefore I see the photograph, I put the camera to my eye, and it's all lined up. A wonderful job that I did that was in Italy, between Siena and Florence, for 5 days, and we were there to photograph community. That was the assignment, community. And I shot it all in film because they wanted archival prints and everything else. And you know, for someone who loves street moments, it was the best job ever, because that's all I did. I will roam the streets photographing life. And this is my Alfred Hitchcock lookalike, which is Alfred Hitchcock was always in his films, so I figured I'd put him in my film, my photograph.
Bruce, do you exclusively shoot with film?
My black and white is film. My color is digital. And if I convert a color image to black and white, I don't like it. I know that it was a color shot. I'm under the, you know, if it's supposed to be black and white, I want to shoot it in black and white. So when I work with my M6, I can put color in there, but I don't, just because of the cost. I think in black and white. So it really makes me think in black and white, because I'm sitting there shooting. I can't get color out of it. I don't feel any loss for, you know, to me, this would not have worked if I had shot it in color. A little bit harder, a little bit more involved, but I think the value is great. I actually, somebody who had an ad for a golf course, they wanted this photograph, and I must have spent 6 months looking for this guy here in New York. I never found him. I needed a release, because they wanted me like going down at you know, the 18th green, you know, the green at 18.
You ever find them?
Never found him. Every time I'd go someplace, because he's a contractor for a contractor for a contractor, and oh yeah, I know him. I'd go here. Oh yeah, I know. It kept going on and on. I just gave up. You know, so my moments are those moments that most people walk by, and I'll have a show of my work, and people say, this is very familiar, and I said, it is familiar, but I've captured it, and that's why it's on the wall. And you actually, most people just walk by. And you know, to me, when it works, it's just so funny. I mean, what people do and captured in the right moment at the right time. To me, it just. I mean, why is this guy standing in the middle of the street? And why didn't, well, she was on her headphones, so she wasn't paying attention, but why did she have to go around him? It just doesn't make any sense. And the street's very wide. And when I went to RIT in Rochester, and one of the teachers was really big on shooting from your hip. Well, that's the way to capture these moments. And I always shoot with my camera up, except I walked by these two ladies, and she was breastfeeding the child, and for some reason intimidated the heck out of me. And I walked by them, and I stopped, and I said, the heck with this, I got to get this photograph. And I pre-focused, and I walked back, and I actually shot from the hip. And I was just amazed that everything was lined up and in focus. And late at night, why does I was doing a party, and I walk out at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm walking down the street, and this guy's here shoveling on Park Avenue. And I take a picture. Now, the M6 makes no noise. I take one picture, and by the time I advanced the film, he had stopped shoveling, and he turned around and looked at me, trying to figure out what the heck I'm doing. And it puzzled me today, how in the world, with all the noise he was making with the shovel, that he even heard that I was walking behind him. And I just like watching, standing and watching. This is in Vienna, which is a wonderful place for street moments. And this is my brother, who is on the Zoom. My older brother is on the Zoom with us tonight here. He was actually in the car when we photographed this in Egypt. And I always look at this one, my room with a view, and just a wonderful time. And so one of the really big things that I love is portraits. And I just finished a phone call today. I've got 131 portraits to do next month. So it's going to be a lot of portraits. So luckily I've had a lot of practice. I feel that the portraits that if they really work, they really tell the story. And if you asked me about them, I could tell you just a little bit. A little boy in China, we gave him the basketball because he had nothing. And I'm hoping that, this is his living room. So, but also I think the portraits are really important because they let you look into them and make up your own stories, which I think is absolutely wonderful. This happened to be the mother of the child, and this happened to be her kitchen. And just totally, she speaks Mandarin. I'm in the middle of southern China. I had no way except the camera was what did the conversation between the two of us. Gave a big smile. We said goodbye and we walked on. It was just fantastic to be able to capture her. Bangladesh, in the middle of the street, nowhere, and they just opened themselves up, and it was absolutely wonderful. And she just loved having, I guess she wanted me to buy whatever she was making there, but I don't do much on the eating on the street in some of the places I've been. Bhutan, an absolutely wonderful place for portraits, wonderful, if you know anything about Bhutan, the dress and everything else shows you the culture of the people just from the image. Lining up 7 kids in the middle of a village in Bangladesh. It can't speak Bengali, but it just happens, and it's just wonderful. I walked into this classroom in Bangladesh, and there must have been over 100 children in this with one teacher. And And I only go into these places with permission from the teacher. You know, I acknowledge that I'm there, and they actually love it because it gives the kids a chance to say sometime in their life, hey, I ran into this photographer and we had this, you know, a little bit of a back and forth. We try to have fun during literally the 2-3 minutes that are there. It generates a really nice photograph. It gives them a moment in time, and it gives me a moment in time. This little girl, I don't know if she was too happy with me taking the picture, but you know, it was take the picture, thank you, and move on. And then in China, just again, I was there on a medical mission, and I just had to get out into the streets. And there's some countries, such as China, such as the West Bank, that you have in Pakistan. You just have to be careful. You just have to be have your street smarts about you. But if you're courteous and are open to these people, and you have a good guide with you, the pictures and the portraits are there. This was the next photograph of the guys putting the cart with the rice. It was just as they were leaving. So the portraits just kind of continue. Back in Pakistan. This was part of I wanted to see if I could create a nonprofit to where this man has a cleft lip and he's 55 years old, and he just hasn't had the ability to have it fixed. And I wanted to see if I could bring the American doctors into Pakistan to get these people fixed, and it wasn't possible. Bringing the child back from the hospital, just amazing, because now the kid's cleft is fixed. And again, what happens around me was the thing that I really remember, because they were so happy to have their child back. Refugees in Jordan. And also, you know, as a photographer, not being political, not being, you know, confrontational and all that, but having to hear what's going on in the photograph that you're taking. This man was saying, I don't care, I'm sick, let myself die, but take care of my wife and my 2 children. And you're sitting here trying to take this picture, and all of a sudden I realize what is actually going on. That the story behind these it brings heavy tears to eyes, and you have to, as a journalist, just keep photographing to tell the story, because the object of my job on this one was to tell the story of these people. Again, telling the story of the mother and the child, who was a freedom fighter in the West Bank, and she will never see him again. So there's a lot behind the photographs, and someday I will do a book with small photograph and lots of text, because the stories behind it are much more than the stories of the photograph. Cartier-Bresson photographed Picasso. I don't know if anybody ever remember that. And he's got his hands on the desk. Well, actually, he doesn't have his hands on the desk, but he's got bread on the desk that looked like hands. And Picasso's sitting there with his hands hidden. And this always reminded me of that. So I just want to go through, because I want to get to some of the projects that I've been working on recently. And also, I also believe you don't have to go to the other side of the world to do portraits. You can do them in your backyard. My nephew was a Marine, and I took him all over New York in all the different places as a Marine. Try to convince an Amtrak guy to let you take his picture on the train. Well, absolutely nobody. I think it was during COVID. Absolutely nobody on the train. So one of the things I love to do are projects, and as we all know as photographers, it's rather tough to come up with the project, but I keep trying. And during 9/11, I put a flag. After 9/11, I put a flag that my daughter had made up on the wall, and for about 2 years, I photographed people in front of that flag, and it was rather emotional. I shot one frame of film per person that I put in front of the flag. And then,
do you always make sure to try to send prints to some of these people that you can?
As much as possible. And one time, which is the Nurses of Lenox Hill, my Heroes series, from the fact that it's very hard to get prints back to somebody in Pakistan, I've actually tried to mail people in India or other places, and I ended up getting the packages back. So April of 2020, I started my Heroes series, and where I went up to Lenox Hill to the clapping, at 7:00 clapping. And the next day that I was there, I came back the next day, and I had made up 30, 40 prints of what I had shot the day before. So in that same, what you're saying, Frank, and I gave the prints to the nurses. They said, do you know any of these people? You know, it was all chaotic and everything. Do you know any of these people? Oh yeah. And the smiles on their faces were just amazing. Over 14 weeks, I gave them 2,500 images, and they wallpapered the inside of the hospital with the pictures. And then, as more and more pictures came in, I allowed the nurses to take pictures from the wall. And I also, because of good old Facebook, I put up a gallery on Facebook, and they could download the pictures from the gallery. And so this is the book that I created. The Nurses Union engaged me after 2 weeks of me just doing it myself. They engaged me to continue to shoot, and then we did a book, 118-page book, and they bought 1,500 copies from it. So in this series, I did a whole group of, you have to go to my website and you'll see the book, but what I'm showing tonight is what I really loved about it was being able to do the portraits. And during that time, and I know that a lot has been done on COVID, but I hope that from the photographs that I did, you can really see the stories, and I literally lived alongside these people on the outside. I couldn't get into the hospital, and it was hearing the stories and just getting the smiles on these people's faces from behind their masks was very, very rewarding. Her glasses are fogged because we were doing an interview with her, and she was telling us about the fact that her mother went into the hospital for I think she fell or something, and she never came out because she got COVID. And some days they would come out real happy. Other days they would come out relieved. Other days they didn't come out. Halfway, about 3 weeks into the project, all of a sudden I had half the amount of nurses were coming out, and I asked a couple of nurses, said, "What's going on? Where are they?" And they said it's getting better in the hospital, and they were sending the road crew, which is a group of nurses that came in from other states to help out Lenox Hill, and they were sending them home because there were fewer and fewer cases, luckily. So I put up a black backdrop, and I created a studio on the street. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had anybody to shoot. And I started pulling people out of the hospital and on the street, and policemen, firemen, everybody that I could get a hold of. I've ridden horses my whole life, and I've held on real tight when there's a lot of noise. These horses stood still with fire engines, cars going by, horns and clapping. It's just amazing that they didn't throw this guy off. And this is from Lenox Health, Greenwich Village, which is where the other part of the nurses were stationed down there. And then all the way through the project, their life went on. All the different protests and all the different celebrations and dedications and everything else. So I shot all the way through. This was Mother's Day, but it was also Nurses Appreciation Day. So people came out and gave them flowers. So it actually helped because it gave me props to tell a better story. The amount of PPE these guys wore, and there were some nurses we just couldn't get out because they had so much PPE on that if they came out, it would have taken them an hour to put it all back on, and they'd have to throw away everything that they had taken off. So there were limitations, and I couldn't go into the hospital. And so this is literally 6 feet of wall out of the 2,500 images. So they just literally wallpapered the hospital walls with it, which was fantastic. So I sold 9 books to one of the nurses down at the Lenox Hill, and I said, "What are you buying these for? You know, you can get them from your union." And she says, "Well, I'm going to give them to the directors because they're not union and they're not getting a free book." And so about 3 weeks later, I got a call from a director at Lenox Health, Greenwich Village. And I went down and met with him, and he looked at me and he picked up my book, and I said, I had a director come in and he said, "Where the hell did you get that book? I want to do one." So I ended up spending 2 to 3 months this summer creating Heroes Work Here. And it was a gift to the workers of Lenox Hill. And my job was to go into Lenox Health, and photograph every single person, every shift I could find in the hospital, over 300 people. And it was an amazing feat and amazing job because I met tremendous amount of people and learned a lot about him. I have some problems with one of my shoulders, and I had my MRIs with Lenox Hill, and I'm standing in the pediatric ward, and the guy walks up to me and goes, let me come over here and talk about your shoulder. And I said, well, I'm supposed to be photographing you. Yeah, but we were in the other room looking at your MRIs. So I had a doctor's appointment while I was photographing.
Yeah, Bruce, were you nervous about being around in such a COVID environment for so long?
This was this spring, so it was pretty good, but also everybody was masked, the place was clean, and I had spent 2020 April 2020 on the streets with all the other nurses, and I didn't knock on wood, I didn't get it. Unfortunately, a few of my friends on here know I had a few other things: prostate cancer, lost my gallbladder, and kidney cancer. So thank God I did get COVID while I'm doing all this.
Yeah.
So I was very, very lucky because the many people, as we all know, are not. And they were very careful in the hospital. You know, I'm standing away from these people. They do have masks on. To take them off, put it back on. You know, they're using more hand sanitizer and cleaning than anybody. But because the book is going to be around for quite a while, we didn't want everything to be masked up.
And people can buy the book from your site?
Yes. Yes. This is, they allowed me into the OR because they just put an OR. Lennox Health is basically an emergency ward. And they're just turning it a little bit more hospital-like. My other...
Yeah, Bruce, just one question. The medical missions, give us a little bit of background on, you know, what those missions were like and, you know, who sponsors them and, you know, why you do that.
Okay, so in 2006, I was putting up a show in the town of Sherman, Connecticut that I had photographed for 14 years, and I was standing getting some printing done. And next to me was this lady who was getting a thing done about going to Cambodia on a medical mission. And I looked at her and I said, I got to do that. And she said, gave me a date, and we went off to Cambodia. And most of them don't pay you to go on it. So I do a lot of fundraising, and I use a lot of frequent flyer miles, and I followed 9 dentists to Cambodia, and I spend 8 days, and nobody cares that I'm standing there. They all know that I'm there. They all know I'm going to be photographing, but they don't give me any, I have no limitation. I can do anything I want, but the object is for me to come home and tell their story. Sometimes, some days are successful, other days are very difficult. But when I come home, my biggest challenge is to get them to put the work on the websites to promote so we can raise money. I did get one doctor paid for a trip to go to China, which was a great trip. I did go to on one for refugees to Turkey, to Beirut, and to Jordan for refugees going into there. I'm trying to do another one because of the training and everything. I'm doing a water project in Pakistan where they have these big wells, and they're pumping water through these dirt ditches to their fields. And I said to the guy, you're pumping all this water. What happens if you don't have enough water? He says, we just put another pipe in the well. And I said, what about putting a pipe from the well to the field? And he says, well, that's a good idea. And I said, if you did that, you would have enough water to flood another field. but you would also have enough water to put a 1 inch from the pipe to the woman's home that is carrying the water a half a mile 5 times a day from the end of your pipe. And he goes, well, we never do that. I said, why not? Because it's not done. But the ladies, so I'm waiting to get back over there, and they actually are running the pipes. So, which is the amazing thing, is that I feel good about the fact that one of my suggestions in a country on the other side of the world, they actually did something that I suggested. And so we're trying to put a nonprofit together to try to, the farmers will put the pipes in, but I want to run that 1 inch pipe to the people's homes, because the pipe that they did run in to the well, from the well to the field, I said to them, I said, because they showed me a video of this lady walking a half a mile with 5 gallons of water in her head. I said, how far is her house from the pipe? And he goes, oh, 300 feet. I go, put a pipe through her house. So it'll be interesting when I go back. If anybody wants to get involved in medical missions, there's a lot of stuff that you have to know, but it is so incredibly rewarding. If you got a 16-year-old that just can't get off of his cell phone, send him on a medical mission with me. I'll bring home a completely changed kid. It's just amazing, some of the young kids that go on these medical missions, how they start out and how they end up. It's just absolutely amazing.
Bruce, you got to finish up, so let's go.
Yep. So Cuba is another book. I've been down there 12 years. I have an absolute love for Cuba. So I printed 260-page, basically a vanity book, because I just had to see it. I had to see it on paper. And the best way to do that is to go to a press and print. So again, my just little PR here, my Camera Odysseys, and I take people all over the world. And I had to do my parting shots, because there's always going to be someone with a sword stabbing me. And for photographers, about February, I was photographing on the street of 34th across from Macy's, and I got knocked over on my butt by somebody who didn't want me to photograph, and he knocked me down like someone hit me with a car. I really got nailed. And so basically blindsiding you. And I wanted to show you my Cambodia minivan. The mother, they're waiting for mom to come to get on the back. So
Bruce, everyone can get and see the books that you're selling on your website.
Yeah, brucebyers.com and Camera Odysseys. And I mean, thank you, Frank. I mean, I've done this a few times with you, and it's just absolutely amazing. And
we're always thrilled to have you. And we're always thrilled to have you. And when new books and new bodies of works are coming, we want you on. You're doing important work. And I didn't know, but we'll have to say a prayer for you with your health issues, that they're eradicated, and you're all good.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you know after December. I got back surgery in December.
You're a science project, Bruce.
Yeah. Buy a light camera. Don't carry the heavy cameras anymore.
So what other places can you go on your Camera Odysseys?
Well, Cuba in January, Nepal and Bhutan in May. And I had talked to someone today that wants to do Italy. And I also have a friend who just moved back to Luxembourg. And we're going to go to Luxembourg and have a photo walk workshop on the streets of Luxembourg.
Great little town, Vianden. There's a great small town in Luxembourg called Vianden.
I will visit it for sure.
Of course, everybody in the chat room's loving the work, Bruce. We thank everybody for stopping in. We've got a quick turnaround for projections. We've got a great show next week. And I'll only give you a little bit of a tantalizer that Joe McNally is going to be hosting. Three wonderful photographers and a great photo editor. Everyone will get all this information is up on the projection.live website. So I thank everyone for coming in and being with us, and we'll